Welcome, folks. It is Tuesday, October the 7th. This is Hurricane Hub Live. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandages. Thanks, as always, for joining us here on 13 News Now Plus. Tonight on HHL, brand new name storm to talk about. No surprise, we were talking about Invest 95L yesterday. Had a high chance of becoming Jerry, and today that happened. At 11 o'clock, the National Hurricane Center pulled the trigger and gave our first advisory on Jerry, and it's strengthening pretty quick. It could be an overperformer like we've seen so many times already this season, and will take a very similar track to what we saw with Gabrielle, what we saw with Umberto, and what we saw with Aaron, which is a recurve out into the open Atlantic. May still threaten the Leeward Islands, may still threaten Bermuda, but does not look to be a threat to the United States, the East Coast in particular. And out in the Eastern Pacific, they're just cranking out storms one after another. We could have a possibility later this week that there are 3 separate named storms out there in that small little basin at one time. Yeah, Raymond is on deck there. They've got Octave right now and Priscilla. All right, here's a look at the Atlantic Basin. That right there, pretty large system, that is Jerry right now. And a close-up look on infrared satellite imagery. 8 o'clock advisory just came out there. And just take a look at how fast it's moving. West at 23, it is cranking. And it's moving due west. It's at a very low latitude, too, 12 degrees north. It's going to have to gain significant latitude right now, in the short term, to completely miss the Leeward Islands. So even though it's expected to track that way, I would still keep your guard up along the Windward and Leeward Islands as we head through the next 3 days or so, as it's heading pretty much due west right now. I don't see any northward trajectory yet. 50-mile-per-hour winds, medium-grade tropical storm. Again, once you get to 74, grade, your Category 1 hurricane. It's got gusts of 65 or so. Pressure still 1,003. It's expected to significantly drop, though. And we are seeing a flare-up of convection in this 12-hour loop, infrared satellite imagery, and completely wrapping around the center of Jerry right now is a pretty large influx of convective activity there. So that's a sign that it is intensifying, and it's in a pretty favorable environment here. Another loop here of visible satellite imagery. Of course, it goes dark after the sun goes down, but definitely has that look to it. I would not be surprised at all if this tracks farther south and west and is stronger than anticipated. Speaking of which, here is the intensity and track forecast as of the 5 o'clock advisory. So this is the second advisory that's come out. That's a full one on Jerry. There have been a little bit of some tweaks here in terms of its intensity being stronger in the last update here, but right now expected to max out 100-mile-per-hour Category 2. We've seen this movie before. Intensity forecasts are some of the hardest things to forecast with these tropical systems, especially moving over an area that's got some very deep, very warm water. We could easily see this overperform and make that jump from a 1 or a 2 to a 3 or a 4 and become our 4th major hurricane so far this season. But again, it takes that trajectory. I mean, it has it turning to the northwest here like now. Hasn't done so yet as of the 8 o'clock advisory. We'll see if that changes at 11 and becomes a hurricane in short order. By tomorrow afternoon, we're looking at a 75-mile-per-hour Category 1 storm. And then the cone, far southwestern portion of the cone, does start to clip parts of the northern Leeward Islands, talking about Anguilla, over towards St. Kitts, places like that. I do think that this is going to probably adjust farther to the south and west, though. In terms of the wind field radii here, where you're looking at yellow, that's tropical storm force winds, the extent at which they come out from the center. And when you start to see the red pop up there, that's the hurricane force winds of 74. This is based off of the National Hurricane Center track. And remember, the strongest winds are going to be on the east or the right side, front right side of the storm system here. So we're looking at all of the worst of the storm likely passing by north and east of the islands there, but it comes pretty close. And again, adjustment here, 50 to 100 miles farther south and west. We'd be looking at direct impacts here potentially from Jerry, and that could still be in the cards. Here's a look at what computer models are showing here with the overlay of the forecast cone. Most lie right within that forecast cone here. Of course, there are some outliers. A few of them are turning it to the northwest here, like now, which obviously isn't happening. And then there's just one lone hurricane model here that does take it farther to the south and west and farther to the west, threatening the Bahamas here by the time we get towards probably this weekend. This is the H model. This is one of the hurricane models here, one of the more better performing models here. We'll see if it's onto something, if it's starting a trend or not, and we start to see more models kind of come in tune and take it farther to the west and southwest here in the coming future. Now, there are alerts up for areas that are going to see possibility of impacts, at least. There's areas like St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, Barbuda, Antigua, Anguilla. Not the U.S. British Virgin Islands just yet. These are all tropical storm watches up at this time, meaning like the next 48 hours, tropical storm conditions are possible, but not definite. Elsewhere in the Atlantic Basin, we've got a wave here that was transiting the Yucatan, now moving in the southern Gulf, Bay of Campeche here. Likely going to run out of time for this to develop. It's going to be pushing pretty much due west. 10% chance there of any development. Next name on the list in the Atlantic Basin is going to be Karen. All right, let's take a look at the longer range computer models here, GFS and European. American model here, pretty much in line with what we're seeing on the outlook from the National Hurricane Center. Very odd here, we haven't been seeing the European pick up on this. So I think there's something going on with the modeling here. But it does show the GFS picking up on it and passing it by to the east of Bermuda. And then, of course, there's this coastal low that may have a chance of developing a warm core and taking on tropical characteristics. Right now, it's not outlooked from the National Hurricane Center of being a tropical system, but likely still going to be causing some impacts to land, including the eastern seaboard of the U.S. as it develops off the coast of Carolina and pretty much sits there and builds off to the north and potentially northwest, building inland by early next week. So non-tropical low or possibly a subtropical low developing there off the coast of the U.S. East Coast. All right, here's the development here on the European model showing a deepening storm. In fact, some models have this getting down into the 980s, which would be close to like a Category 2 hurricane. Okay, and it just sits there offshore, kind of festering 4 days. And this takes us all the way out to Tuesday, keeping things very unsettled, very windy, very rainy, and likely some coastal surge and tidal flooding being a problem in these areas. So that's something to watch. Outlook on rainfall totals, far eastern North Carolina could be seeing 4 to 8 inches. Again, this is over 7 days, so likely pretty much Saturday onwards be seeing those totals there. And this could certainly go way up if we get a track a little bit closer to land. All right, the long-range outlooks from the Climate Prediction Center came out today. It's Tuesday, taking us out to 2 weeks and 3 weeks. The 2-week outlook here, 15th through the 21st, really hones in on the possibility here of a CAG event, Central American Gyre. I don't think I've ever seen, at least in my memory here in the last couple of years, seen an outlook with high chances of development here. And notice it does favor the Eastern Pacific. So what the CAG is, Central American Gyre, is a large area of low pressure. And sometimes you get spindles of energy breaking on off into favorable basins, which would be the Western Caribbean, Southern Gulf, or the Eastern Pacific. Now, since the Eastern Pacific has been so active this year, likely favoring that some of these spindles of energy get ejected out into the East Pac and then develop, which is why the high chances are here in the East Pac. Still moderate chances in the Western Caribbean and Southern Gulf, so it's still a possibility there. And this time of the year, this is where we look for development of what we call close in-home development here. And these can easily shoot up into the Gulf and only give you 2-3 days lead time to prepare for a hurricane. Michael, Milton, both came from these areas. So keep that in mind there. Going out another week to almost the end of October, just a couple days ahead of Halloween, still forecasting this area to remain active, showing moderate chances both in the Western Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific at that point in time. Here's a look at the Eastern Pacific right now. We've got Octave, still a tropical storm. This thing's been going on for like 10 days in the same area. And then we've got Priscilla, Cat 2 hurricane now, and Raymond on deck here. Look at how robust this wave is. Coming out in the same general area, it's now got a high chance of developing into the next named storm there. Octave, 45-mile-per-hour winds, drifting on off towards the east. And then we've got Priscilla, likely on a weakening trend, but will be building inland to Baja Sur, California, and maybe even ejecting some of that tropical moisture into southern Arizona by later on in the weekend there. Right now, winds 110, weakening pretty quickly down to a Cat 1 by tomorrow. All right, we can update our scorecard now in the Atlantic. We are now up to 10 named storms with the development of Jerry. Will likely be up to 5 hurricanes when it becomes a hurricane as early as tomorrow, and we sit at 3 majors. Maybe we'll have a 4th if Jerry overperforms. 16 in the East Pac with Raymond, it would be 17. And we've got 9 hurricanes, and 3 of those have been major so far. All right, coming up after a quick break, we've got our tropical trivia, the answer to yesterday's question, and a brand new one right after a break. We'll see you in a couple minutes. Welcome back to Hurricane Hub Live. Yesterday's tropical trivia question: since 1954, how many seasons had 0 storm names retired in the Atlantic? Was it 1, 15, 20, or just 2? The answer is C. 20 different seasons had no named storms that were bad enough to be retired. Most recently was back in 2023. That season we had no names retired, which is great. Maybe we can continue it this year as well. All right, today's question is, it's unusual to see an A-named storm retired. When was the last occurrence of that? When was the last A name to be retired? Was it back in 1977, 72, 1992, or earlier this century in 2001? I'll have the answer for you tomorrow night on Hurricane Hub Live. A reminder, we are here 7 days a week at 8 p.m. Eastern for the latest on the tropics. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.